Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Now, you may remember a few months ago I had the pleasure to interview Sir Julian Rose about raw milk, and I've been drinking raw milk ever since, well, I suppose for about a year now, on and off, ever since I realised that actually we've been, can I say lied to? I've said it, that we've been told that pasteurised and homogenised milk is far, far better than raw milk. Now, this, of course, is just my opinion. Don't shout me down. However, it has benefited me. I've enjoyed it, and I've been managing to source raw milk to the door, and I've enjoyed very much all of its wonderful qualities. However, it may not be for everybody, and people may be wondering, why am I keep banging on about it? Well, today I want to talk to a fourth generation dairy farmer who produces raw milk, and talk not just about the qualities of raw milk, but also the whole dairy industry and farming in general, because you may be aware that there is a movement now that's trying to get people's attention that if you have no farmers, you have no food. And I think people are slightly confused where their food comes from. So let me introduce to you Jon Cook from Dora's Dairy in near Cirencester, or if you prefer Swindon, in Wiltshire. Jon, welcome to the show.
Hi Richard, nice to be on.
It's lovely to have you. I'm sorry to drag you away from your very beautiful cows, which are on your website, which I shall show a little bit later on, and the link will be in the description, of course. And thank you very much for coming on the show. So just to go over a little bit of raw milk before we get on to the state of the industry, which I think is what a lot of people are beginning to wake up to, the fact that there is a problem. I enjoy raw milk, but I have, like so many people, just in the past, just assumed that raw milk was dangerous because it came straight from a cow and it needed to be processed, I suppose, like so much of our food, in order to be acceptable to our human gut, I suppose. Can you tell me what benefits we might have in looking at raw milk as a potential milk?
That's a very big subject.
Yes.
Yes, and going back to what you initially said, the fact that actually raw milk is inherently pure in its form. So our bodies, when we drink raw milk, actually it identifies that milk as being a food. Pasteurized milk is actually denatured proteins, destroyed bacteria. And when we consume it, our bodies don't actually recognize it as food. And one of the problems with that is that we can have a histamine response, so asthma, eczema, and a lot of people think they're dairy intolerant, but they're actually pasteurized, homogenized milk intolerant. And it could be protein as well. So I know that the milk you're drinking is A2. I don't know if you know the difference between A1 and A2 milk.
No, I do know that when I buy it, it does say it's A2.
Yeah.
And actually, that's an interesting. You can tell us the difference.
Yes, well, it's the beta casein, and the way we digest the beta casein A1, A2 variants is different. So the older breeds, the Jerseys, the milk that you're drinking, and so there's the brown Swiss tend to be Guernsey, Jersey. They tend to be naturally A2, producing big beta casein. Where we've selectively bred cows for other genetic traits, we've actually inadvertently bred out that gene. So we've got a lot more A1s. The black and white, the historic black and white Holstein Friesian cow, a lot of those would be A1 milk. And because of that, we get the same symptoms as lactose intolerance. So bilious, bloating, gas, uncomfortable feelings. It's the same as lactose intolerance. And I'm sure you're fully aware, lactose intolerant people, which is actually a not very good way of describing it, because all they do is just don't produce the lactase, which is actually a natural thing to do.
Right.
In regard that the lactose intolerant people are the purebreds. So if you're lactose intolerant, you are purebred. And we're the ones that mutated about, I don't know how many thousands of years ago. We had a mutation that we allowed us to drink pasteurized milk because we shouldn't be able to. So the A1, A2 If you have A2 milk and you have it raw, you should be able to digest it. The people that can't are genuinely dairy intolerant, and there's not actually that many dairy intolerant people. It's a very good broad brush to say knock out your diet if you've got any symptoms, but actually, if you're near a raw dairy, try it, and then you'll know whether you are actually lactose intolerant or protein intolerant.
It the process, as you said, takes out a lot of the goodness, which makes a lot of sense if you're heating it up to quite a high temperature, because all sorts of things change when you
Yeah,
raise the temperature of things, and changes the whole nature of it. And we've been drinking raw milk for centuries.
12,000 years. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, yeah. And it's only been the last 2 seconds of our evolution that we've suddenly gone, oh my god, we can't possibly have that. It's going to kill us all, which is stupid. And the reason they started pasteurizing milk was actually for quite a good reason and a legitimate reason. So when the Industrial Revolution started and people started working in factories in towns started to expand, they couldn't get the milk from the countryside into the towns. They didn't have refrigeration like we do now, and their standards of cleanliness were obviously far less than they are now. So the life of that milk was probably only 1 or 2 days, maybe
Right.
maybe a bit longer. So that is why the farmer would go every single day with his churn, and he would just literally the housewife would take her pint of milk for that day, and had all the natural enzymes and bacteria that boosts our immune system. And one of the other things that, again, so historically, our cows were only fed grass. The commercial herd feed a lot of byproducts,
Yes.
soya and wheat, barley, other industrial processes that have waste products, because it's very good for producing a yield from that cow, increasing the yield, but it's detrimental on the quality of the milk. So anyway, going back to the industrial time, they took the cows into the town because that was where the people were needing it. They
Yes.
didn't have any grass in the town, so they fed
No.
them waste from the bakery and bakers from the breweries, and so the cows actually became ill. And it's no different from us. If we eat a species inappropriate diet, we're ill.
Yes.
And I'll go on to that. So I'm actually a carnivore. I did that 4.5 years ago, nearly 5 years ago, for very good reasons. And so what happened? They had these cows in towns, and they were producing really poor quality food, which was actually making the residents ill. And they blamed the cow, but as always, it's never the cow; it's the how.
Yes.
And because they were keeping these cows indoors, feeding them inappropriate food, the whole thing just fell apart. And
Yeah.
so we're still on the back of science, which is 120, however many years old. But now our process is completely different. The way we produce raw milk and our understanding of pathogens and pathogen transfer, and our cooling is much better, and our transport is much better. So we understand all these things. So the quality of the milk, even in the last 30 years, has increased exponentially. And what I was drinking as a child growing up wouldn't even be allowed to go into a tank to be pasteurized now, as in the quality of it. So, and I'm still alive, I made it through. I mean,
You made it through, yeah, despite.
I have 2 sisters, and as children, we were never ill. One of my sisters never had a day off school. She's very proud of that. And I've never, touching wood, broken a bone, and my density of my jaw is very good. I know that from X-rays, and so my initial nutrition as a child was very, very good. And obviously, I was drinking gallons of milk straight from the tank, and it wasn't necessarily as good a quality as it is now. So the whole thought of pasteurized milk for me is absolutely. I mean, I won't even drink my own pasteurized milk. That's how.
Blimey. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's a choice of pasteurized milk or no milk, I'll go for the no milk option, because I know
Yes.
what our bodies do when you consume it, and I'm not going to rubbish the dairy industry, because there's so many really good farmers out there. Actually, all the farmers are good. There's no bad farmers anymore. They've been gone over the last 15, 20 years. So the quality of milk it's actually really good now. And like I say, I farm very. My whole ethos is the health and welfare of the cows, because if they're healthy and happy, the quality
Yes.
of the milk is very good. We all win. The downside is I don't produce very much milk. So the difference between me and a commercial farm, they would average 10,000 to 12,000 litres per cow per year. I average about two.
Right.
So we
Wow.
are, it's
It's, it
poles
sounds to me
apart.
like you come from that tradition of small farms that we've
Mhm.
seen gobbled up by the intensive farming,
Yeah.
which, I mean, you only have to go through around villages, and I'm in Sussex, and you go around a number of villages, and some of the villages you might see perhaps four, five converted barns that now people are living in, and you realise these were all little farms at one time,
Yep.
all small farms, all probably cooperating with one another, doing slightly different things and helping out here and helping out there. And I read a lot of the old 1930s farming books because I love that whole era,
Mhm.
and it's fascinating to read about that sort of life, and then you compare it to today and you realize just how cushy and convenient life is, but not necessarily healthy. And so it does sound like there you are doing that. Would you like to see a return to more smaller farms
Yeah.
producing similar things to you?
I think it's absolutely vital. I think if we don't, then food security has been transferred to other people now. Your food trans your food security is your responsibility, nobody else's.
Right.
If there's no food in the supermarket, it's not their fault. It's your fault because you haven't got enough in the larder. And I know we briefly spoke about it earlier, but if you don't have access to food, and we have, I'll tell you what made me realize this was the Beast from the East, where we had however many years ago, 5, 6 years ago. Our little village was snowed in. There was no lorries coming in. And so we put a shout out on Facebook saying we've got milk. It became like an outing for people. They were coming here to get milk, bringing their own containers. The kids were playing snowballs on the way. It was all just really jolly, and it was a really good period for us to put us on the business map. But after that period, it was pretty full on. I said to Sarah, I said, that's really scared me, because what happens if we get events like we did in I think 82, there was bad snow drifts, and there was some
Mm.
in the 70s where we didn't go to school for a week. It was brilliant.
Yes.
But these people, and I say these people because it's probably most of your viewers, they go to a supermarket every week.
Yes. I know.
What happens when that lorry can't get into the supermarket on day two? There's a big, it's on the news. The shelves are running out. The shelves just go into shoppers go into locust mode, take everything. What are these people going to have at the end of the week? And then we go into week two, and there's no food. And then the wife is saying to the husband, the two kids haven't eaten for 3 days. You need to go and find some food. Well, where are you going to go for that food?
Exactly. I mean,
And
we go to a farm, but it's 7 miles away. And
and there's
and I live in a town which is probably 150 to 200,000 people.
Yep.
They're not all going to go to the same farm, or they'll never get there.
indeed. And I've spoken to quite a few people about it, and I looked at the husband and I said, right, where are you going to go? She says you can't come back till you find some food. Where are you going to go? And like there's like
Yeah.
blank look on his face. And I said, come on, where are you going to go? She can't go get any food now. And I really push the person and say, where are you going to go? Well, I'll come to you. Well, no, you're not, because there's already 60 people ahead of you. So
Yeah.
all of my food's gone. And and I'm sure he went away and just completely brushed it aside and said, well, it's never going to happen. There's always going to be food in the supermarkets. But is there? Can you absolutely guarantee there is? And you can't. And I was speaking to somebody about this the other day. The irony of new house builds, they put in these lovely kitchens, but nowhere to store any food. Whereas our grandparents, if they were snowed in for 3 months, it wouldn't matter. They spent the summer curing, drying, canning. It was just another winter, and they had food in the larder, and it wouldn't have been an issue. They had vegetables they grew or through the summer, and fruit that they canned. We don't do
And
that.
as you say, with the new builds, there's nowhere to grow anything.
Nowhere to grow anything, and
Even
nowhere
if
to
they
store
want to
anything.
grow something, and they don't have a larder, most people sort of laugh and they go, "Well, I've got a big deep freeze,"
Yes,
and and
as long as
you know,
as long as the electric stays on, that's going
as
to be
long
good.
as exactly, and it's probably full of all highly processed food from the supermarket, which has barely any nutrients in it, and a load of other chemicals just for the fun of it.
Exactly. So my and people laugh when I say it. My Narnia would be 10 or 12 of us around every town.
Yes,
That people just so almost like a 15-minute city, but a good one, just nipping out to get their supplies and coming back in again. But only good, good food,
yes,
because the supermarket doesn't have food in it. I think it's like 10% food in the supermarket. The rest is just chemicals and processed shit, really. That
yes.
nobody should actually be eating at all. And one of the well, and that sort of goes on from my story, really. So 5 years ago, I had some blood tests done. I was quite a bit overweight, busy farmer. I was just food on the go. We used to sell some like flapjack and shortbread from the farm.
All right, so
And
nibbling all of
I
those
never
away.
got through a milking without having one of those. And 2 sugars in my tea, and it was just flapjack, shortbread, white bread, cake, anything I could, because I was so addicted to carbohydrates that I ate every 2 hours, and every 2 hours I would make sure that my day I knew where I was going to be in 2 hours time, or at that point that I needed food, and I would take food with me if I needed to, and it wasn't even food, it was just rubbish. So
Mm,
Maryland cookies were one of my absolute, and I would take an outer of three packs of those, to some fields we got away from the farm, and I would take 6 packs of knickknacks and like a litre or two of fizzy drink, and all I ever came back with was empty packets, because all the time I was there, I was just eating, because there's no off button with carbohydrates.
right.
And did a blood test. I used a guy who's one of our customers, Ian Vout, and I'll share a link to his stuff, because he's been pivotal in my health, and completely turning me around. And we do work quite closely with him, because part of his treatment for people that are either overweight or have issues is nutrition, and good nutrition, and finding good food can help your health improve. That's mine. I mean, I was nearly 18 stone. I lost 5 stone in 6 months, and all I did was eat differently, and my
Yes.
attitude to food completely changed. So,
And I mean, that's interesting because you've grown up on a farm.
mhm.
So you would have been eating probably more healthier, or you
Well,
would have
no,
thought you would have been eating more
exactly,
healthier.
exactly, and I wasn't. I wasn't. I'm so addicted to sugar and carbohydrates that the quality of the food that I ate was, and I would just eat anything, any coloured cake, no matter how no matter how fluorescent it was, I eat it, because I was like, but now when I look at fluorescent cake, I just look at that as a toxin.
Yes.
Why would I want to put that in my body? And
Yes. And it
stress,
is, I mean, it is a psychological thing in the mind, isn't it?
totally.
I mean, because I can't, I mean, I haven't stepped into a supermarket for 4 months now. I made a principle. Once they started putting the cameras on the tills, that was the line.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I would only be going in for things like bleach and washing up liquid and things like that, I wasn't buying the food. I'd stopped doing that and stopped eating bread. That was the sort of thing that really started for me, bit of weight loss. And then, and I'd always been interested in farms and farming, but never been able to sort of broach it because of sort of busy life doing whatever it is I'm doing, whatever that is. And then making this excursion to farm shops and talking to farmers and talking to people in the industry and realizing actually, all this food that we are consuming is so bad for you. But now I don't go in there at all. And it does mean, as you say, that when I go to the farm shop, we buy a whole load of stuff. We do make use of the freezers because that's what we have at the moment. But it's all good food. But the other thing that I think that people have also forgotten is what to do with raw ingredients to turn it from what comes out of the ground or is butchered into the meals that you can enjoy. And when you learn the secret of cooking, let's say, the meals are so tasty. I mean, you know, I couldn't now. When you go and you have a meal with somebody else and they come out with their supermarket food, no matter how good they are, and they covered it in spices to hide everything, you just go, well, that's, you know, just give me a nice steak that I've cooked to how I like it, and I don't need much else on it.
No, absolutely. And one of the things I've certainly found out, and again, I was discussing this with Ian this morning. Um, when I went carnivore, the meal planning was very easy because I ate half a kilo of meat, 500 ml of yogurt, and a litre or a pint or two of milk. And that's all I eat in a day, and I eat it once a day. So, and I would just have a steak with some spices on. I'm not, I'm not one of those. I'm not absolutely.
No. I mean, I'm just saying that.
But
no.
But so whereas food preparation would have been an issue in the past, it actually is. It's very easy when you just use really good food.
Yes.
And people have said to me, I couldn't afford to be carnivore, John, because I couldn't afford to buy all that meat. But the mistake is they're trying to do like for like in quantity.
Yes.
And like when I tell them I just eat half a kilo of meat, so if you have a kilo of mince, I mean you can buy half a kilo of mince at the supermarket for I don't know, 5-6 quid, I don't know. You get a couple of meal deals, and by the time you've had breakfast, lunch, snacks in between, and then an evening meal. I mean, tell me you can't eat that cheaply.
Yes.
And it's just when people realise that the quality of the dogs
the dogs are coming in here.
When you realise that the quality of the protein from a grass-fed, slow-grown beast is far greater, and I liken it to bodybuilding and weightlifting. Bodybuilding looks good; you get all the muscle. Yes. But the quality of the lifting, if you like, is much greater with the actual weightlifter, who doesn't look like an Adonis body, but actually will outlift the bodybuilder, because it's a different process and a different reason. So yes. The carbohydrate filled, pushed, wheat finished animal has got the bulk and looks good, and then you go to the supermarket and you buy this big pack of meat and you think you're getting good value. You're not actually getting anywhere near as good a value as you do from a much smaller, denser, nutritionally packed piece of meat. And I've had people say, when they make a spaghetti bolognese, for instance, they always use like half a kilo pound of meat. They go, wow, we couldn't eat it all. Whereas before we could eat it all. Yeah. And the reason for that is that our bodies recognize that protein. For the last 3.5 million years, we've been eating animal fat, animal protein. It's only been the last 3 seconds of our evolutionary journey that we've started to eat carbs and promote them, that food pyramid, which is completely up the wrong way.
Inverted, yeah.
And so when people realize that they don't need anywhere near as much food, I go, wow, that's really quite good. And actually, the satiation, being satiated by one meal a day. I've got quite a physical job, and I've had people say to me, "Oh, I have to eat 3 times a day." Well, I personally don't. I can get by with having that meat because it's really good quality, and my body recognizes that food as being enough for what I need. I mean, I'm not fat. I was fat. I can work all day. My brain fog's gone. I didn't have any digestive issues, but that's even better now. So, I don't have any skin complaints. The whole thing works really well for me. And I'm not going to say it works well for everybody because that's, I'm not a doctor.
But again, it is that psychological barrier that people think that because we've been so brainwashed to have 3 square meals a day, yep. and I my partner Julia and I only have 1 meal a day. Right. We might have a few nuts, or sometimes I'll have a nugget of cheese at lunchtime. Yeah. Just a little bit, just to really, it's just me to sort of think, well, I've eaten something, or a glass of raw milk. And it's amazing how that will, as you say, you're sated by that, and away you go. Mm-hmm. And the quality of proper food, and all those nutrients, as you just alluded to, is it keeps you going. You don't need to eat so much. No. But going back to your food security thing, you almost need to be shocked We need to have those snowdrifts in,
Yep.
so that people go, oh blimey, the supermarkets have got nothing, we've got nothing. What the hell are we going to do? Because it's, oh, we'll just nip to the the convenience store, or we'll nip somewhere else, or whatever. But actually, you do need to sort of see, actually, we've had it very cushy, and but that's a false narrative, because the stuff you're stuffing in your mouth is just not doing you any good at all.
It's a very good business model, because the fake food industry, as I call it, actually then feeds everybody into the pharma business, and there's no profit in satiated mouths, bellies,
Yes.
and there's no profit in cured patients. And if you get the other two working right, then the other two won't ever happen.
Yes.
And it's quite sad to see people getting into the medical system. I'm 52, just turned 52, and you hear some of my friends, yes, we're on statins, we're on this, we're on that. My absolute goal is to stay as far away from those people as possible. I don't want to get into that system. No. And again, we were talking about this morning, the values. I mean, the blood tests we do, they're like £300 to £400, and that's a lot of money for a blood test. Well, it is, but then I don't want to be, put a value on your health.
Yes.
Do you want to pay, an extra £10, £20 for your meat a week and stay out of hospital, or do you want the NHS just to pick up your bad health choices, bad eating choices? It's a perspective on value, and like I say, I mean, my milk is £2.50 a litre, similar to what you're paying. You understand that the value of that food is actually worth that much money in relationship. Yeah. We've all got our iPhones and our gym membership and our Netflix or whatever else, which I don't. But
I was going to say, apart from the phones, I was thinking, oh yeah, I don't have a television.
No, I don't have
a gym membership.
I turned my TV off after Brexit. That was my cue to get rid of all that.
That's really interesting.
Get rid of all that.
Radio 4 was switched off after Brexit on mine. It was just like that. Well, okay, I've had it.
Isn't that funny? Because I actually broke my tractor during the summer before the election or the voting, the referendum, and the tractor I borrowed was stuck on Radio 4. And I thought, I'm a big boy, I can stick this. This won't be too much. Apart from getting really irritated by the archers, the bias was just incredible. And and that was actually my wake up call to a lot of other things as well that are quite clearly we're being manipulated with and going forward. So yes, I fully agree. There's no BBC in my house. There's no TVs. don't have TV.
Well, I'm sure a lot of the viewers will be thrilled to hear that, I'm sure.
I mean, I don't have a lot of time to watch it either, but...
No. Well, there's so many far more interesting things to do than devote your life to somebody else enjoying their life.
Indeed, absolutely.
Which is what TV is on.
So it's perception of value, what you view as being important in your life. And, the NHS is a brilliant system, but it's being abused. And it's being abused by people thinking that the NHS will just pick up their bad health.
Yes.
Whereas my view is I don't want to be in bad health. I want to stay away from that system. If I break a leg or I'm in a car accident, absolutely, they're brilliant. But, how many times do you go to a diabetic nurse and, they're not, let's face it, 12th like, are they?
Exactly.
They're not walking the walk. And Ian, who I was speaking to this morning, he goes to conferences, about health. And he said, there's like 4 thin people in the audience, and these people are dispensing their information. So they're not talking and walking the same line, and it's really bad. I mean, I was a fatty before, and I lost the weight very easy. And again, we were talking about this morning, how easy it is to lose weight. So the whole health and fitness industry has run on pound and do as much work as you can, eat less, do more, which is exactly the opposite of what your body needs. Your body needs really good energy to actually burn off this thing. So if you're in negative energy, your body's going, no, we can't lose any fat because we need it to survive.
Yes.
And it's a false narrative. And so like with Ian, we did the blood test. He found out if you've got anything out of line. We'll assess that. If you're inflamed, don't go to a gym because you're not going to lose any weight. All you're going to do is just ruin your joints. I've speaking to a friend recently who's got rheumatoid arthritis, and she's actually had some pretty horrendous surgery done on her feet. She's mid 40s, and I said,
Gosh.
"Have you looked at your diet? Have you thought about carnivore?" And she said, "What's that?" How are the medical people not saying what are you eating? What's inflaming your joints? Rheumatoid arthritis is easy to. It's one of the easy ones to sort out. Just like type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetics. I reversed my type 2 diabetes just by staying away from the carbs. A lot of doctors tell you it's not reversible. It is bloody reversible, and it's very easy to reverse. You just need to eat sensibly.
Yes.
Being obese it's a choice. Actually, it's not a.
And you only have to look, if you look back at, say, 1940s photographs and you just compare the size of people back then, I mean, the evidence is out there.
Yep.
People weren't eating. I mean, the opportunity to eat now is so much, to eat healthily is so great if people put a mind to it. But because they have been misguided to go into these great big shrines of artificial food.
Well, there's certain things people say to me, like balanced diet. Balanced diet is a marketing term. So I say to you, what's your perfect balance?
My perfect balance. Well, it's for me. It's one meal a day, a meat-based diet with some vegetables, but we'll have steak and we'll have mince and we'll have
exactly
chicken.
So the balance is carbohydrates, proteins, fats. So what's your perfect balance? Yes, precisely. Nobody has a clue because everybody is different, but the reality is our balance, as you call it, doesn't need to involve any carbohydrates. Fat and protein is what we need. If you don't have fat and you don't have protein, you're effectively going to just fade away and die. If you don't have carbohydrates, nothing happens.
Yes,
nothing happens. You lose weight, and you actually are much better off health wise. So the other marketing term is 5 a day.
Yes.
Well, this far in the Northern Hemisphere, you walk outside now and find me some fruit or some vegetables.
5 different fruits available.
I mean, it's bonkers to think that we would eat 5 fruit a day. I read a really interesting book on vitamin D, which was a game changer for me. It just made everything fall into place. So, like SAD syndrome, the seasonal adjustment disorder, where you get depressed and you don't want to do anything. That's our body's natural defense against losing weight. So it's saying, our body's saying, do less and eat more. Get fat ready for the lean period, which is coming, which is the winter, because there's going to be no food about unless you can catch it. It's going to have feathers or fur on it. So when our bodies receive all of that fructose, insulin is released. It puts it into your cells. The fruit was only available for a very short amount of time in the year, and that was our cue. That much fructose, insulin. Put fat on. It's our body's natural defense against the lean time. So insulin is there for a reason. It's not a demon. It's there to put on fat, ready for the lean period. So why would we eat 5 fruit and veg a day to put on fat all the way through the year? It's bonkers. I mean, I do eat fruit very, very rarely in season. I've got some raspberry trees here. We've got blackberries obviously on hedges. But I don't eat fruit. I haven't eating fruit for 4.5 years now. I haven't eaten vegetables for 4.5 years now.
Because any vegetables at all?
Oh, as I fall off the wagon every now and then. It's my birthday on Monday. I had some chips. I felt all right, which was the better thing, and some bread. But no, majority of the time, I just eat meat.
Right?
Because that's species appropriate for me. I did a DNA test as well to find out where my heritage lies, and Sarah did too. She's blonde hair, blue eyes. She's very northern. I'm Northern Europe, so I shouldn't eat fruit from anywhere near the equator because the amount of fructose in it is bonkers. It's like a banana. It just sends me off the planet. Mango, kiwi fruit, all those really high fructose food. I mean, even now the fruit that we have here, apples and such like, they've been genetically changed to be sweeter.
Yes.
And so we think it's natural to have like an apple with that much fructose, but it's just going to put a weight on. It's almost so bloody obvious that it's
So do you think? I mean, there's a lot of talk at the moment about people growing their own veg and doing all of this. From what you're saying, is that actually they should be perhaps, if regulations would permit, which clearly have been designed not to permit, they should be keeping pigs and a cow or two or something, rather than actually spending hours digging up the garden and things like that, or forming groups and buying a bit of land to have some animals that they could breed to eat.
That's what our ancestors did.
Yeah.
Our parents would remember everybody having a pig at the end of the garden and chickens, and we didn't have waste issues because there was very little waste food, but any waste food went to the pig or the chickens.
But you're not allowed to do that now, are you?
No, absolutely not. No.
The rules and regulations for all of this has become so. I mean, we were thinking, or still thinking, of trying to buy some land somewhere, and pigs, chickens, and bees are some of the things we would love to do, but. People keep saying, oh, well, you won't be able to feed them properly, and you won't be able to do this, and you won't be able to do that, and the paperwork is this. And you just think, this government interference on people just living. I mean, as you know, we're pushing against council tax, which is just one tiny little part of government interference on people's lives. But when it comes to food, which is fundamentally the most important thing for our existence, and they start putting stupid restrictions that make people unable to do it, this is beyond the pale.
It's bonkers that you can buy cans of Monster drink, which are basically chemicals, and yet the restrictions we have on raw milk and what we have to do to actually sell it, it defies logic. It's easier to get drugs, I think, than it is raw milk in the country now. Yeah, I mean that's the irony of it, isn't it? It's it's banned in Scotland. You can't even get it in Scotland. Why?
Is it really banned in Scotland?
You can't get raw milk in Scotland now.
Gosh,
can't even
you have to come over the border, smuggle it in.
Yeah. Effectively, you have to smuggle it in.
But this is all got to change. Can I ask you? Sorry, go on.
So who gives them the right to tell you what you can eat?
Well, exactly.
It's absolutely bonkers. And I said to you earlier, when my customers come here, I don't have any certification regarding organic or any of that stuff. But your contract's with me. Come and see the farmer. Come talk to me.
Yes.
I'll show you the cows. I'll show you where your food's produced, how it's produced. If you want to watch the milking, you can come and watch the milking with me, and get your confidence that way. Don't rely on a piece of paper from some other person to come in just to tick box. And then the amount of times I get asked, am I organic? And I will say to people, what does organic mean to you? And they don't really know. They have the hormone thing, or because there's no added hormones. Well, there's never been any hormones in British beef or milk anyway. You're not using antibiotics. I haven't used antibiotics routinely for 10 years probably. But come and ask me.
Yes.
Don't rely on a piece of paper. And it's very good marketing from some organisations regarding what they consider to be good food, and there's lots of gets around, and gives them but the government have no right to tell you what you can eat and what I can eat, and to that matter necessarily what I can feed my chickens or my pigs, or I want to do it properly for the right of the pigs are great waste disposal. Why hasn't everybody got 2 chickens in their garden? Because any food waste they will happily turn into eggs for you, and then if you're brave enough, some meat at the end of it. And it's not later. But everybody did that because that was a natural progression. We didn't have food going into landfill. I mean, that's absolutely boring. They talk about saving carbon. All that food is carbon, and it's going into landfill, not being reused. That's criminal, absolutely criminal. So, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm passionate about it.
I was going to say, you're obviously very passionate about it. I went to an event last year called Groundswell. And it was interesting talking to some of the farmers, and we had a couple of farmers come up to us, Julia and I, and they'd recognise me from the thing, and they said, "Oh, it's interesting." He said, "All these people you see here who've got the stalls and what have you, the farmers that you talk to, they deal in commodities. They don't think of the product that they're making on these large scale farms as any more than something that, they grow corn, whatever it is, and it disappears, and then they grow more, and that disappears, and they don't go to a restaurant, say if they've got cows or cattle, and enjoy their own beef having been cooked in a restaurant fairly local, so they don't think of it as food. You clearly are very aware, and I imagine
Yes.
small farmers know that because that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah,
How
we have a local restaurant, the Cricklade Club, Cricklade, very close to us, only 4 miles away, and they buy our meat, and we go down there and eat it. And it's actually really nice to see that on the board on the side that they take our meat and our milk, and it's
how do we get back to a situation where we get back to these smaller farms, as you say, 6 or so dotted around towns that are supply? I mean, I've been talking about this, and people have been poo-pooing me when I say this is what we definitely need to go back to, and they say, "Oh, don't be ridiculous, Richard. It's economy of a scale and all of this sort of nonsense." And I think, yeah, but it's the economy of scale that's giving you all this highly processed rubbish.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, how do we get back to it? I don't know actually, but it needs to be grassroots led. I think it needs to be the only way anything changes is by being supported.
Yes.
And if it's not supported, we sell all of our milk from the farm. I can't. I could produce a lot more. I won't push the cows. Pushing the cows for yield is not something I will ever do again. And I have some disappointed customers. I think you're talking about one quite close to you that often runs out of milk, and
in the end, I have to go and I order it, and it's very. I have to say, it's very beautiful milk that I get, but the farm that I can get it from, but they don't deliver. It's gone very rapidly. As soon as they put it on the shelves, because there's local customers around there who know they do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got customers traveling two and a half hours. I've got a guy who comes from Nottingham, which is just bonkers because he likes how we're doing it and what we're doing and the way we're doing it. But no, I've got not that many local customers, but majority would be up to an hour away. They're making that journey because they understand, and there's so few raw milk producers out there now. I mean, the Food Standards Agency, who we are licensed by, they changed the rules 2-3 years ago, whereas before they had to prove stuff. Now we've got to prove stuff, so we have to do a on-farm safety management safety protocol, which is fine because we're all trying to get to the same place. But like every single farmer, I mean, I'm really good at farming. I'm not very good at paperwork. Luckily, Sarah's very good at paperwork, so she takes that burden from me. But if you haven't got that extra backup on the farm, then a lot of the farms that were producing raw milk just go, it's too much for us. We're just going to stop. So although it's not necessarily divisive, and it's a good thing to do because we're trying to make sure that raw milk is safe. You hear these scare stories, and quite often the scare stories come from farmers that aren't registered, that aren't producing raw milk for drinking. They're producing raw milk for pasteurization, which is a completely different process.
Right.
In regard to how clean we need to be, and understanding of pathogens and such like. And you only need to get one event where a raw milk was consumed and has made somebody ill for the whole industry to get tarnished. You don't hear about the Chinese restaurant in your local town that's made 30 people ill because it's happening in every bloody town. So it's not news. It's not headline grabbing. So this is where the whole, raw milk's dangerous, isn't it? And I've had somebody come here and said, "Oh, raw milk's dangerous." I go, "Yeah, I've created an amazing business model.
I'm going to poison my customers, so they repeatedly come to me."
And
yeah, absolutely. But if it wasn't for people like you doing what you're doing, the raw milk industry would just disappear because of the nonsense that's been put out.
Absolutely. And we're trying to change it. We set up an organisation called Raw Milk Producers Association, and I was one of the founding directors of that. And where you get your milk from is also she's a director too. And we're actively trying to. We work very closely with the Food Standards Agency because it's a very big organisation run by people that are in offices and without having any. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm not sure what agricultural dairy experience they've had, but they're making policy on things that they don't necessarily literally understand. So as an organisation, we're trying to work with those organisations to steer a sensible path. But as I said to you earlier, we haven't done there's very little research on raw milk because as individuals, we can't afford to do big studies and such like. So we've set up I'll give you the link to it. We set up a raw milk supporters club, so we can employ actually one of our committee, Tally, to actually start looking into doing research on the health benefits of raw milk, because they are numerous. But as an industry, we're not allowed to shout about them because there's no scientific peer-reviewed
Yes.
evidence to say that, and I've got anecdotal evidence that it can certainly alleviate IBS. One of my neighbours, she was on 6-Imodium a day maintenance dose, a month on our milk, and she was off those tablets. I've had people come with brown and blue inhalers for asthma. I don't know which one was which, but she was going to be on these for the rest of her life. And within a month on our milk, she wasn't taking any of them.
Wow.
And that's she was on steroids and I don't know what steroids and whatever else. And just from changing one part of her diet, and we all say for the raw milk, if you're going to use it for medicinal purposes, a glass in the morning and a glass at night, make it the first and last thing you do in the day. And if your symptoms can be alleviated, they will be just by doing that. They said, she said, I don't have the need. I carry this blue inhaler around me, but I don't actually use it anymore. It's just like for emergency, just in case I do.
Yes.
And eczma's the results we've had from eczema. We had a guy come, and when he smiled, his mouth like cracked open like the Joker. It was awful. His face was just awful. And his hands were bad. And again, within a month on our milk, it wasn't oozing anymore. It was healing skin. And he had a 10-year-old son and 10-year-old boy, and he said, "Show John your hands." And he showed his hands, and the whole area that was like pink, like you get under a blister.
Yes.
Gosh. And I went, "Oh, that looks quite painful." And he went, 2 weeks ago, that was oozing. He had to wear gloves at night and put E45 cream on. And this is like a game changer, absolute game changer. And I don't do this job for the money. I can assure you of that, because there isn't any. We've been running on a loss for about 4 years. But when you get somebody come to you and say, "You can't stop doing what you're doing because you're my medicine. If I don't have you, I'm going to be ill." I had one lady came. Her husband called her farty lady because if she didn't have our raw milk, she was farting all day long. And he said it wasn't very nice. So he was prepared to drive. They came
drive and get the milk, clean the atmosphere in the house.
Precisely. So when you get that sort of
feedback,
it's hard to ignore that.
Yes.
You are actually part of people's health solutions. So so we set up this raw milk producers supporters club to try and get some funding and some momentum into actually doing some proper research. If you can actually say, yes, if you've got IBS, then there's a good chance that some of our milk can help you in this area, or certainly with skin complaints and breathing complaints. So we're trying really hard to push it. So if any of your guys on there want to support us, it's £2 a month, which is nothing to be able to.
Quite.
And we're just trying to make sure that, because we're always on the edge of a raw milk ban. It only needs something to go wrong. So we're educating the farmers on how to produce it cleanly, but we're also needing the evidence to go forward to actually be able to promote it for more farmers to join our little movement and actually produce really good quality food.
Absolutely.
And it's so rewarding when you get people come to you.
It makes, all that sort of stuff. And when people come and they've enjoyed what you do and you've spent time doing it, and they come and pat you on the back, it's so nice. There's not many jobs in which people do that. If you're sitting in a factory screwing on jam jars for a living, no one comes up and says, "Oh, those lids you put on jam jars this week were really good." So it really does lift you.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about things like net zero policies and things like that? Are you affected? Because it seems all the farms have all of this sort of on their back too, and you might have to talk delicately about this, I don't know. Are you affected by all this sort of stuff?
I don't subscribe to it. I think it's complete rubbish. I think it's just another way to control people and farmers and diets and like what's happening in Europe at the moment. I'm so proud of those farmers for actually making the stand they're making. It doesn't affect me. at the moment, because I supply all of my customers come to the farm. I don't have to subscribe to any. I used to produce milk for a very well-known chocolate company, and I know very much that now they are pushing all of their farmers to be carbon neutral.
Right.
Well, we're all pretty much carbon neutral anyway because of the nature of what we do. And the irony of these people driving around the countryside telling us what to do, jetting off to Switzerland or wherever they go.
Yes,
and so the irony is not lost on me at all. And I think it just feels like another control measure. You know, when I was the farm assurance schemes, the red tractor, as it's called, it's just like a lot of stuff that was in there. It was just tick box stuff. People were coming out, and it was just another industry on the back of farmers. Another industry. I mean, I think there's like 9 industries on the back of, watching what we're doing and telling us what to do rather than just letting us get on with it. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have some regulation and some policing, because there's always going to be abuses in any of those fields. But carbon neutral thing, I don't know. I'm not a subscriber, I'm afraid.
Good for you.
I heard many years ago. Again, I can't remember because the COVID thing messed up my timeline. But there was Iceland had a volcano erupt.
Oh yes, I remember it.
And we couldn't fly to America, and it was all like big stories about these volcanic ash clouds. And that one volcano, emitted enough CO2, or the equivalent CO2 as we had since the industrial period. We're nothing. We were just And I think what do we choose as Great Britain produces like 2% of the national the absolute carbon output. If we fell into the sea, it wouldn't actually make any difference anyway. You got India and all the developing nations, China, just pumping out. They're looking in the wrong direction. Direction's over there. So they want us to have electric everything, but they don't have the infrastructure to run it. And
no. And could you run a farm on electric everything?
No, not at all.
Electric tractors and electric whatever.
I don't use a tractor very much anyway. I try to let the cows do most of the work.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
But I do get in contractors to do extra things. And no, I hate spending time. If it wasn't for podcasts and things, I'd hate driving tractors. I mean, it's just like it's one of the most boring jobs I can ever imagine anybody. Imagine the whole life getting up in the morning having to sit on 8 or 9 hours, 10 hours on a tractor would absolutely do me. Couldn't do it.
So it seems I'm coming sort of towards the end of my sort of 1 hour slotted time, and I've been very much enjoyed the conversation. We're clearly on the same level on so many things, but it definitely seems that what you do there with the small farm, it should be repeated all around the country. And it would be serving people in such a good way, not just obviously milk, but all the different things from cattle, pigs, and so forth, and that people could. I mean, that's the thing that you said about if people come to the farmer then knows he can't get away with any old crap, because if people are coming and going, well, your cows don't look very good, and all, they're police themselves.
Absolutely, and it's almost ironic that people work their lives and then to a point where they want to retire, buy a bit of land and have some cows and stuff. And like, I'm there. I've done it. I'm here already. Why aren't schools, another subject which anyway, and why encouraging because we need brains in the agricultural world. It's not an easy job that we do, and we're multi skills and we need really intelligent people to come in because we need to feed people every day. And the careers like officers or whatever they call themselves are saying, advisors saying, or not doing very well academically. Have you thought about farming? No, you're doing really well academically. Have you thought about farming? Let's come in. There's opportunities to be had. Everybody's going to need food, and if things transfer or where I think where it's going to happen, we're going to need a lot more farmers. because these big farmers won't be able to. The centralized system, the just-in-time system, does not work.
No,
It does
I
when
mean the way
when
the
it's
way
working.
I've looked at the last sort of 100 years is as if to say, well, it's been an interesting experiment,
Yes,
and we've realised that
yeah.
as an experiment, it was a bit of a failure.
When I was growing up, so 40 years ago, there was I think it was 13 farmers in my little village that had cows that were milking, and that
Right,
varied. That varied.
13. Yeah,
That varied from 5 to the big one was 120. We've always been around 60 mark, and there's just me now,
yes,
and that's like wow.
yeah. It's
That's
very sad.
all gone into a central pot, and then my milk used to be taken to Hatfield, Peveril, or Stonehouse, Westbury, Bourneville, um, Marlbrook in Birmingham. That's bonkers. If you said to somebody 100 years ago,
Mm.
you're gonna put milk onto a tank and you're going to transport it 100 miles, and then you're going to process it, and then you're going to transport it another 100 miles to another place, they would go, "But what about Mrs. Next Door? She can have it, can't she?"
Yeah,
Because the only reason that's been possible is because carbon's been cheap, diesel's been cheap, oil's cheap. Well, I'm sure they're trying to change that model. Well, they are
yes,
changing, aren't they? It's not cheap anymore, is it? And the whole cost of living issue as we're going through. Well, it's bonkers that we transport effectively 90% water hundreds of miles. That's absolutely ridiculous. And the whole carbon thing, like the whole farming thing, bigger and bigger tractors, bigger machines, carbon reliant. We've all got electric, and
exactly.
we've almost completely lost our whole direction of evolution. It's just in the last 3 seconds, and we just kind of gone
And and
back to
and
wall.
and and what about all this planting trees and
Oh God.
the land with solar panels and all of these
Yeah,
wind farms and things?
yeah.
Probably not a good subject to ask you about.
No. I am.
I think
I heard an advert on the radio, and this is one of the very few times I was listening to the radio when I was spreading some straw in one of my sheds, and it was like a bing bong. Do you own some land? Would you like some trees? The government is going to give you £10,000 an acre. And I thought, well, if that's coming from DEFRA know who all the farmers are because we've all got holding numbers. Send us a letter.
yes,
That was divisive.
much
It's for you people to say to us, well, hold on a minute, you farmers will get £10,000 for planting bloody trees. That
yeah,
advert was a complete waste of money, other than being divisive to turn people against farmers. The whole subsidy thing.
yes,
Oh, you get, but yeah, but you get a subsidy. You have an easy life, don't you? Subsidies doesn't even cover anywhere near the cost of what the food should have been charged at. My fellow milk producers are producing milk for like 35p a litre. Christ, my costs are nearer to 80p a litre. They're producing at a loss as well.
yes,
The average farmer is what, in his 60s now? Any industry where the average employee or the average age of the people working in it is above 30 is going backwards. So you need that young blood to come in
yes,
and steer it and have the energy to do it. But if the average age is 60, average age there's
yes,
a lot older and not so many younger. And that's a bad place for us to be. So, when you started the podcast, you said, how do we encourage more farmers like us and food security issue? Well, it has to start at a very young age to get these people involved, and it has to
yes,
be encouraged. And farmers need to be paid a wage for what they actually do, rather than it being. I mean, the farmer bashing is quite incredible. When you actually, as a farmer, the amount of times people say, "Well, your cows are farting, you're destroying the earth, and you live in a nice house. What you got to complain about?" I actually had one guy come here and said, "Well, you got how many acres have you got?" I said, "I've got about 70 acres." Oh, 70 acres to play in, ain't that lovely? Oh my God, that's my factory floor. And
yes.
regarding play time, don't get very much of it. I mean, I think I've had one day off in the last 4 years. Well, if you say, and I asked somebody this question, we were talking about money and the farming and the fact that it isn't brilliant. I said, what do you think I should get paid for what I do? Just out of interest, as a professional farmer, if you want to say, where does my pay bracket come in? Where do you think I should be? And he had no response for me. There was
Hadn't thought about it.
no bracket I could go into. Well, you need me every day
Yeah.
to eat, and I think I did work it out a few years ago. I was earning like £1.80 an hour, and I said that to him. I went, "What do you think of that?" And he went, "Well, I don't know what you should be earning." I said, "Well, I'm a part-time vet. I'm a part-time mechanic. I'm a tractor driver. I'm a herdsman. All the other,
Yes.
I don't get my pension paid. I don't get every weekend off. I don't get 21 days holiday. It's all on me. What should I get paid? Am I middle management? Am I £100,000 a year, or am I?"
Well, I was going to say those pen pushers up in DEFRA and these organisations who probably only step outside to get into their plush cars, they're earning a hell of a lot more than £1.75 an hour.
That's all the supermarket. I mean, the irony is that I would earn more money stacking shelves in a supermarket.
Yes.
I'd actually earn more money putting my products on a shelf in somebody else's shop.
Yes.
How ironic is that? That's just...
That, I know. That is awful. That is awful.
As far as I'm concerned, my role in producing really good quality, healthy, nutritious food is to keep people healthy and out of hospital. I should be rewarded from the NHS. Give me some credits,
Yes.
keeping people away from the hospital. But that's not how our system works anymore. It's completely...
But you do it. I mean, clearly you do it because you love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love my customers. Absolutely. I mean, I've got a whole new community that, and many of us think the same.
Yes. Do you think there's a growing number of people that are beginning to realise I mean, I know you said there's a lot of farmer bashing going on, and there has been for a long time, but do you think that more people are slowly beginning to realise actually how important you guys are?
I think there seems to be a slight move towards. There seems to be far more interested in farm-related podcasts and YouTube videos. So there's lots of farmers doing really good work promoting it. So I think there is an interest.
Yes.
In the farm.
It's getting those young people to do it, and the opportunities of. I mean, I remember speaking to Patrick Holden a year or so ago. And I said to him, and he seemed to think there was loads of opportunities for young people to get into farming. And then I spoke to other farmers, and they're saying, well, okay, how are you going to do that? You need the land, which is expensive, or you need to have a tenancy, and you need this and this and this. And the requirements seem to be absolutely eye-watering.
Which is why you need some very intelligent, innovative people coming in and actually having new ways of doing things. Which is why it needs to be younger people. Yeah. Because if you're not born into it, and I was lucky, I was gifted.
Fourth generation.
I was gifted what I've got, and I'll just pass it on to the next one. So that's the other irony, isn't it? They all think we're really wealthy, but actually it's just transitioning between names on a piece of paper.
Have you got children to pass on to?
Not at the moment, no.
No, then you better work on that.
I'm working on that regularly.
Good man.
And so,
and that's the raw milk that helps with that as well.
Oh yes, that's very good for that. yes. Opposite to what the vegans say, isn't it?
Yeah, there you go.
The vegans say that red meat and milk make your pencil a bit flaccid.
A bit flaccid, yes. Listen, Jon, I've gone over my hour. It's been such a joy to talk to you. I would love to at some point when the weather is nicer to come down to the farm and see the operation if that would be possible.
Absolutely, we're 4 miles off the M4 junction 16, so easy to find.
Fantastic, that would be fantastic in glorious Wiltshire.
Very good for a pee break if you need one.
Anyway, thank you so much for telling us about A, raw milk, B, the state of farming, and how important, I mean, you've sung to me and endorsed again how important small farms are and that we need more of them and all of that. So I very much appreciate that. And, of course, how detrimental supermarkets have been. And we need to eat properly again. So an amazing conversation. And I hope you, the lovely viewer, have enjoyed some of this. And the website and a couple of other links that Jon was speaking about will be in the description. So do check them out. And if you don't deplete Jon's sources of raw milk, do go and give it a whirl. Why not? I can thoroughly recommend raw milk. I drink it myself. But anyway, I'll be back with more monologues and more wonderful interviews. But in the meantime, from Dora's Dairy, Jon Stone, thank you so much for joining me. It's been absolutely brilliant. Loved every minute of it. I'll be back another time. Join me then. Till then, bye-bye.